We're looking at the survey of the book of Job. My name is Robert Corah. You may find this at nativemi.org or at Right Now Media. The book of Job, the title is up to the primary character. When the book of Job was written is not known. It seems as if the book of Job describes events that may have taken place around or before the time of Abraham, approximately 2000 to 1800 BC. Because it says Job lived another 140 years after most of the events in the books, according to Job 42, verse 16. So his lifespan fits well with the patriarchal period. Abraham lived to be about 175 years, according to Genesis 25, verse 7. There are no references to the nation of Israel, the Exodus, the law of Moses, or tabernacle. Job lived in the land of Oz. Lamentations 4:21 indicates that Oz was located southeast of the Dead Sea. So Job's lifespan would indicate that he came earlier than when man's life was shortened. Now, significant people in the book of Job. Job's friend Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar. Elihu, another acquaintance of Job. Now, the theme and purpose of the book of Job. The book of Job deals with the subject of suffering, but the theme of the book is not suffering itself. Rather, the theme of the book of Job is the trust that Job learns from his suffering. Now, key verse, though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. But I will maintain mine own ways before him. Job 13, verse 15. A summary of the content of the book of Job. The basic question in the book of Job is, why do righteous people suffer? The book of Job may be divided into 5 main sections. God allows Job to be tested. Chapters 1 and 2. Job and 3 friends debate the reason for his suffering. Chapter 3 to chapter 31. A fourth acquaintance, Elihu, tries to explain the reasons for Job's suffering. Chapters 32 to chapter 37. And then God speaks to Job. Chapter 38 to chapter 42. God blesses Job in chapter 42, verses 10 through verse 17. The highlights of the content of the book of Job. In section 1, God allows Job to be tested in chapters 1 and also chapter 2. In chapter 1, Job is tested. God allows this. Job is introduced as a very wealthy man, greatest of all men of the East, Job 1 verse 3, with 10 children. A debate takes place between God and Satan. Satan claims that Job only loves God because of the material blessings God had given him. Satan's charge is that Job's godliness is self-centered. He is righteous only because it pays and is therefore evil. God allows Satan to afflict Job within specific limits. In order to refute Satan's accusation, Job's experiences a sudden series of catastrophes involving his livestock, servants, and children. Job responds to these catastrophes by falling to the ground in worship and declaring, "The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord," verse 21. In spite of Job not understanding, he does not sin, and he does not charge God with wrongdoing. In chapter 2, the debate between God and Satan continues. Satan claims that if Job's physical body were afflicted, he would curse God. God permits Satan to inflict Job with painful sores from head to toe. The whole series of catastrophes in chapter 1 and 2 forces Job to wrestle with the question, why? Job's wife suggests, curse God and die. Job 2:9. Job responds, what? Shall we receive good at the hand of God, and shall we not receive evil? Job's three friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, hear of his suffering and mourn with him in silence for 7 days. Now Job and three friends debate the reason for his suffering, chapters 3 to 31. A series of debates take place between Job and his three friends, focused on whether God would allow such severe suffering to happen to a person who is righteous. The basic logic of Job's friend is, all suffering is a result of sin. Job is suffering, therefore Job has sinned. Job's friend offer him oversimplified, inadequate solutions. God has inflicted you because you're wicked. God has inflicted you because you've not helped people who are in distress. God has inflicted you that in order that, after being chastised by him, you may be healed by him. Job's friends say some good things, but they never move away from the false idea that suffering always implies sin, and prosperity always implies righteousness. Their thinking represents a shallow and partial observation of life, that people's suffering is always proportionate to their sins. Job responds to his friends, I'm not a wicked man. I'm basically a righteous man. Besides, if God has afflicted me for being wicked, then why does God allow many wicked people to prosper? It is not true that God has afflicted me because I have not helped people who are in distress. I've helped those in distress many times. If God has afflicted me in order that I might be disciplined and healed, does it require that I suffer so very severely? Throughout the debates, Job defends his own essential innocence, though not his sinlessness. See Job 21, chapter 13, verse 26. Job rejects the view of his friends that suffering is the immediate consequence of sin, and that God has become Job's enemy because Job has sinned grievously. Wouldn't you like to have friends like that? Woe is me. Now, a fourth acquaintance, Eli, tries to explain the reason for Job's suffering. Chapters 32 to 37. Elihu, a young man, rebukes the other three because they condemn Job, even though they cannot answer his arguments. Elihu offers a more accurate view of suffering, telling Job he needs to humble himself before God and submit to God's process of purifying his life through trials. Now God speaks to Job, chapter 38 through chapter 42, verse 9. In chapter 38, verse 1 to chapter 40, verse 2, God speaks to Job out of a whirlwind. He reveals that he's worthy of worship and trust, whatever he chooses to do. God asks Job a series of more than 70 questions. Now Job responds by acknowledging his own ignorance in chapter 40, verse 3 to 5. Behold, I am vile. I will lay mine hand upon my mouth. I will proceed no further. Say no more. Job 40, verse 6 to 41, verse 34. God speaks to Job again, revealing his authority, his control, what is humanly uncontrollable, such as wild animals. God points out the infinite distance between him and man. Man as a creature and finite being cannot comprehend the infinite wisdom of God. It is futile for man to think he can understand all the ways of God and how he deals with his creatures. Job chapter 42, 1 to 6. Job repents and acknowledges God's power. I know that you can do everything. Job 41, 1. Job no longer asked why. God rebukes Job's friend, verse 7 to 9. My wrath is kindled against thee. You have not spoken to me the thing which is right, as my servant Job has. God tells Job's friends offer sacrifice, and Job prays for them. Now, chapter 42, verses 10 to 17. The book concludes, God blesses Job twice as much. 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, 1,000 donkeys, and just as many children. 7 sons, 3 daughters, as he lost in a series of catastrophes in the first 2 chapters of the book. Job lives an additional 140 years. Now, we see a timeline. If we back up, when does this happen? You see, very early in the timeline, the time of Abraham, and then a journey through the Bible shortly after the flood. We're going to place Abraham and Job. Now, Old Testament periods, you see the 10 periods, and we're going to put it back in the second one, Patriarchal Age. Take your camera, look at the QR code, or copy the address in order to do the homework. Here's a master list of all the homeworks for every book in the Old Testament. 7 to 9 minute video. Now, the survey of the Old Testament is designed for Native Americans. The notes are from Dr. Rich Constanza. Thank you for allowing us to use this. He's also promised the notes from the survey of the New Testament. My name is Robert DeCorah, nativemi.org, robertdecorah@gmail.com. If you'd like me to preach for your church someplace or conference, please contact me.